I have a school visit tomorrow, a live, in-person, in front of real kids school visit. I have done some events since the pandemic, since things have started opening back up, but I have not had an actual go to the school, visit the kids school visit since the fall of 2019. And to say I'm excited is an understatement. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I used to be a public school teacher. I taught writing workshops for a really long time. And even after when I was transitioning more into being a full-time author, I still did tons of school visits because I love them. It is one of my favorite parts of the job. Now, I know not everyone wants to do school visits. In fact, I know some authors of books for kids who have never done a school visit and dread the idea of having to do school visits. Do you have to do school visits? If you want to do them, how do you go about them? Should you rely on your publisher to set them up, or can you do it yourself? We're going to talk about all of that in this video because I was thinking maybe I'll vlog the whole process of doing this school visit thing, and then I realized, you know what, I don't have a video that's just a good comprehensive how to author school visit, and so that is what this is going to be. I put this out on my community tab on Tuesday and asked you guys if you had any questions, and several of you asked some excellent questions, so I'm going to use that to kind of organize this video. Timestamps below if you want to jump around to find specific information that you need, and yeah, let's get into it. How do you get a school visit? Do you contact teachers, the school librarian, somebody else in administration? The answer is yes, and also no. The truth is there is no one specific method that authors use to find school visits. In the case of my school visit tomorrow, I have it up on my website that I do school visits, and I have some information there, and a teacher, this is actually for a Montessori school in, locally to Dallas, just reached out and contacted me a couple months ago and said, we'd like you to do a school visit in December. And I said, great. And we talked about it and worked it out. In 2019, I mentioned that was the last time I did in-person school visits. What I actually did was a school visit tour that I organized myself. My friend and fellow author, Rebecca Behrens, she writes wonderful middle grade novels as well. She flew here to visit me for a week, and we scheduled the entire things ourselves. I emailed everyone you mentioned. Yes, I emailed school librarians, I emailed English teachers at schools, I emailed some districts here in Texas have a school library coordinator. So like there was one district we visited where there was one contact, a library coordinator at the district level. So I contacted her and ended up booking visits at I think like 4 middle schools for that week, just through that one contact alone. So every place is going to be a little bit different. It depends on the size of the schools in your area, the size of the districts in your area, what positions people have. But I would say look for, if you're at elementary school, if you're looking to do an elementary level visit, then contact the elementary school teachers that teach the specific grade level that you would like to visit. For middle schools, contact the English teachers, contact the school librarians, and you might even reach out to someone at the school administration level, principal, school, probably not the principal, maybe an assistant principal. Again, it just depends on what their titles are and how much information they have on their website. Some schools' websites are great and they'll say, for information about blah, contact this person. You really just have to kind of do a little legwork at this point. And it is totally okay to cold call or cold email them. When I do that, when I reach out, I do it by email, not phone calls, because I'm not a sadist. I mean, who wants to make or receive a cold call where somebody's trying to book something with you? I don't know. So for Rebecca and I, it was just a really short email that introduced us, said, we are the author of these books published with these publishers, and we are organizing a school visit tour, and we would love to visit the kids at this school. I gave a very short pitch as to what the presentation would be about. So for me and Rebecca, the theme of our school visit tour was worst case scenarios, and the presentation was about all the ways things can go wrong in the writing process, in the editing process, in the publication process, and afterwards. And I'll go into more detail about what I put into a presentation later on in this video. But just like a short pitch, this is what your kids will learn. we decided to offer a variety of different packages, and I encourage you to do the same, because just from a sales point of view, you tend to do better when people feel like they have a choice rather than, here's this one presentation I'm doing, choose yes or no. What we did is we offered a full auditorium, like bring in a whole grade level and we'll talk to all the kids, visual presentation, plus options for in classroom writing workshops, so a smaller group setting thing. And we also offered a book club lunch where a very select group of students and teachers would have lunch with us, the authors, like in the library or somewhere in the school. And also book signings. So for example, a school could choose, you know, we would like to do 2 auditorium big presentations for the 6th grade and the 7th grade, and 4 in-class workshops and the book club lunch. And then there would be a price for that where you add all those things together. Some schools were like, come in, 1 auditorium presentation and you're out. That's great. So you have a different price for that. So make it kind of a tiered thing. You don't have to do the in-classroom workshops. That's very much a personal preference. You guys know, I love teaching workshops. That's actually my favorite part, even more so than the presentation. I like getting into the classrooms and like doing a writing activity with the kids. I've also found that as far as Q&A goes, you always want to have a Q&A, and I'll get into this again later as part of the explanation as to what I put into my presentations. I have found that auditorium Q&As can get a little off the rails pretty quickly because there's so many kids and they're not always paying attention to what the kid before them asked, and it just gets a bit hairy. Q&As always go much better when you're in the classroom with like 15 to 25 kids. It's a smaller group and it's just a little bit more manageable. So anyway, that hopefully answers that. Yes, sometimes very often your publisher will organize a school visit tour for you. I've had one publisher who organized a couple of school visits for me, and that's really great. But don't be afraid to, if you want to do this, absolutely reach out on your own. Teachers, librarians, you know, and these administrators, they love hearing from authors. Like, it's a very special event for everyone, for an author to come in and meet with the kids. And the worst thing that's going to happen is they're just not going to respond to you, and that's fine. You know, you did what you could. So I would encourage you, if this is something you're interested in doing, definitely reach out, and in your email right off the bat include what you're offering and what your prices are, and that way they can gauge right away whether or not they can afford it. That brings me to the next question. Should you charge an honorarium for a school visit? Please, please, please do. Here's the thing. This is a tricky area. And I say this as someone who I have done school visits at private schools with tuitions that are more than I make in a year, probably. And I have done school visits to Title I schools. And I believe all kids deserve the opportunity to have an author come to their school and speak. So I can't say I've never done a free school visit. I have done free school visits in very special circumstances, but here's the reason that I do charge for school visits way more often than not. And I have talked to so many authors who have done even more school visits than me, and this is just a phenomenon we see across the board. Everyone, you, the teachers, the principal, and the kids, everyone takes the visit a lot more seriously when there's money involved, even if it's just a little bit. I mean, I've done school visits for like $100 before. I don't charge what I would call an exorbitant amount of money, but I personally have not had this experience, but I know some authors who have had experiences where a school that could afford to pay a couple $100s to have an author come out asked that the author come and visit for free. And the author thought, well, maybe I'll sell some books out of it. I guess I'll do it. And so they went into it with that energy. And the teachers, and again, no offense to anyone, I was a public school teacher, so I'm not trying to throw shade anywhere, but it was very clear that the adults at the school considered this more a period off for the teachers where the author would be kind of babysitting the kids for an hour. And it wasn't taken very seriously by anyone. And the kids, of course, pick up on all of that. And it was just a very lackluster visit for those authors. So nobody wins in that situation. I think to be fair, also, doing a school visit not only takes time and preparation. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's a day of work. It's a day that you're not writing. It's a day you're not doing the other things that you do to earn money. And people who are experts in their field deserve to be paid for their work. I really if you can't tell, I have a lot of feelings about this because I am an author who has been very broke in the past and was repeatedly asked to do school visits for free and felt terrible for saying no because I literally could not afford it. I have also been a public school teacher at specifically a middle school that was very low income, and I would love to have had an author come in and talk to my kids, but there's no way our school could have afforded it. So I definitely see both sides of this. I do think that the school investing even a small honorarium, it means a lot to the author, and it will help everyone enjoy the experience more. I really believe that. So yes, you should charge for your school visits. And again, this is why I encourage you to offer different layers as to what you will do. You know, I will come into your school and do 2 auditorium presentations and 2 workshops and a book club lunch for, you know, $800. Oh, you can't afford that? Okay, well, how about if I come in and just do like a more intimate chat with, you know, one of your classes, and we'll do a little workshop and it'll be $150. You're still charging fairly for the service that you're offering, but you're giving the school a choice and you're not excluding the lower income schools with the kids that would really love to meet with you. Also, something else I do, if a school is just like really wants, you know, I want to do this visit and they want to do this visit, and I know that they simply do not have the budget at all, virtual school visits, I will do that for free. I don't have to travel anywhere. There's no gas involved. There's no, you know what I mean? Like it's just Zoom. We're all used to that by now. I'm happy to do school visits virtually for free for those schools that need it. So that's my little soapbox on that. Yes, I do think you should charge. I will also say, again, not trying to throw shade at certain authors, but I have noticed when I look them up and do some research that authors who are wildly more successful in terms of hitting bestseller lists and or winning awards than I am charge more money, and, you know, more power to you, you do you, but I mean, I'm talking like thousands and in some cases tens of thousands of dollars to go on one school visit. I would never, no matter what level of success I ever achieved, I don't think I would ever feel comfortable taking that kind of money, especially from a public school. Like, I don't know. Everybody has to find their own, where you fall on that spectrum, I guess. I think you should charge, and I think you should charge fairly for the school and fairly for you and the amount of work you're putting into it, and that's gonna look a little bit different for everyone. Next question. Are school visits more of a middle grade than a YA thing? This is just purely speculative on my part. This is not based on any facts. I think school visits are definitely more common in elementary school and middle school than high school. So picture book authors definitely do great with school visits, and like chapter book and middle grade authors, absolutely. It's very common. I have done high school visits. You can do high school visits. I can't imagine like high schools would be less interested in having an author come out and do a visit, but in my experience, yes, they are a lot more common. However, it's not like there's a rule, even an unspoken rule about it. If you write young adult and you want to do school visits, you know, please please, by all means. I'm sure you can find some schools that would be happy to host you. Next question, how do these kinds of book sales work? Do the kids bring money with them? Do they leave with postcards, flyers, and take them home for the parents to pay for them? Do you send them a pre-visit pack with videos or flyers or samples so that the kids can pick out of a catalog and get the books delivered beforehand, and then you do the pictures and signings on the day? Yes. I am not kidding when I say every single option that you wrote in this question, I have done it that way. There's no one way. It can go any way that you and the school work out. For example, the district I mentioned earlier that Rebecca and I visited on our school visit tour, they had a very solid in-place policy. They even had a specific company that they bought our books through. They had a account set up with them. I cannot remember what the company is called. I don't think it matters. But they got a big discount because they bought the books in bulk. So I believe what this school district did, and like I said, this was 4 different middle schools we visited, is in advance, without Rebecca and I doing anything, they took care of all of this. They said, okay, in a couple weeks, guys, these 2 authors are coming to visit you, and they wrote these books. And we were talking about 2, like, each of us had one specific book that was part of the theme of our presentation. And they said, so if you would like to buy books by these authors, you know, here's the forms to take home to your parents, bring them back with a check or whatever, and we will order them for you. And then it was great because when Rebecca and I arrived at those schools every morning, in the library, they had boxes and boxes of our books that the kids had already pre-ordered, paid for, and they were there. And so after our presentations, the kids got to come up and they had little slips to show which books they had bought, how many copies, and they would get their books, and then Rebecca and I would sign them. And it was amazing. It was amazing because we sold a ton of copies and we didn't do any work. It was all the school. Some schools will have something like that set up. Other schools will not have anything like that in place, and it's really entirely up to you. I have seen authors talk to their publishers and get kind of a setup where the publisher will send them books to sell, and then they will get a little credit card machine and they'll work something out with the school so that they can sit there and sell copies of their own books. I don't see this done very often because it just gets complicated and messy, and I know personally for me, I don't want to be like I don't want to be taking the money from the kids. I feel weird about that. I feel like it needs to go through some other channel. It can be done. I would be interested in hearing how self-published authors handle this, because then of course you do have to be the one taking the money. I don't know. It can be done. That's not the way I would do it. I think it's great when they pre-order the books, and you can just talk to the school. That can happen a million different ways. It might just be the teacher saying, hey, here's, the author that's coming. This is the book. If you want to ask your parents to order it on Amazon or go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up. And you just kind of hope they do. Other schools are going to have like a more solid system in place. So again, yeah, there's no one true way. It can happen lots of different ways, and it's best to just be flexible and talk to your contact at the school about what works best for them and their kids. Next question, how do you make sure the event is a success? How much content and activities do you have to plan? What kinds of activities have you tried before? What's worked best? And what kinds of things can go wrong and how you can avoid them? Yes, that is a very good question. So I definitely encourage you to create some kind of slideshow using Canva, Keynote, PowerPoint, whatever you feel most comfortable with, because the visuals help. I mean, they entertain the kids. And if you're the kind of person who gets even a little bit nervous doing public speaking, it always helps to have the audience's eyes on something that is not you, I have found. So I definitely, and also it just helps you feel organized and kind of stay on track with what you're doing. But mostly it's because kids are visual learners. I mean, most of us are, right? And that it's just gonna help them a lot. So here's the truth about the topic of the school visit. You can take an angle, like my angle of my presentation tomorrow is talking about fairy tales and how I constructed my own fairy tale, and I'm gonna do a writing workshop afterwards where the kids are each going to write their own fairy tale. But another angle is Rebecca and I on our tour, our theme was worst case scenarios. What are all the things that can go wrong in the writing and publishing process? But at the core of every single presentation is the same thing. The process of writing a book, the process of editing a book, the process of publishing a book traditionally, because that's the route I know, and everything that comes after. Kids, it's the how the sausage is made. Like, teachers and kids love this behind the scenes look. And here is an extra hot tip, okay? It'll make teachers love you. Really spend a good chunk of your presentation focusing on the editing part of the process, because kids are going to relate to that more than anything else. You know, it's one thing, you know, to talk about where you get your ideas from and how you turn them into a book. But I think it's really important to tell kids that, I always make sure to tell them, every first draft of every book I've ever written, like, they've never been published. It goes through so much in the revision stage. And in fact, I have this, and I include this in every presentation, including the one I'm doing tomorrow. I will show the original first draft page of Spell and Spindle, and then I will show the notes, the actual handwritten notes that my editor gave me on that page, because they were a little bit harsh because it was not a good opening. And then I will show them how I implemented those changes and what the final version looked like. And here is something that has stuck with me for a really long time. I did a visit at the Brooklyn Public Library years ago. I don't remember when. I shared this photo on my community tab. It was from this visit. So it was like the whole 7th grade from a local school took the bus over to the Brooklyn Public Library, and they filled the auditorium, and I was in front of all of them. And it was actually this same presentation that I'm doing tomorrow. And I got to this part about editing, and I showed them my original first page of Spell and Spindle, and then all the marks, all the red lines and crossouts and stuff from my editor. And I was like, and I asked them, how many of you have ever gotten an essay back from a teacher and it looked like this? And you know, every kid raises their hand. And then I said, and how did that make you feel? And this one boy said, stupid. And then there was this kind of heavy silence where everybody was like, and I felt it, because let's be real, as authors, sometimes that's how we feel when we get our edit letters. You know, even I say I love edit letters, and I do, but when you get that first moment of, ooh, where you realize how much you actually have to fix, you start to feel stupid. You start to feel like you messed up, like you didn't do a good job. And it can be really demoralizing, you know? And I mean, I know authors who still cry when they get their edit letters. I don't cry when I get my edit letter, but I know authors who do. They just take it really personally. And you know what? Kids do too. Of course they do. When they work hard on an essay and you get it back and it's covered in markings, you just kind of feel defeated. And I think it's something that I make sure to say, and I have made sure to make this point at every school visit I've ever done since this one where that boy said stupid, is I say, yes, sometimes when I see notes like this from my editor, I feel like I did a bad job too. I feel stupid too. But then I remember my editor, like your teacher, is not telling me all the things I did wrong in my writing. They're saying, you did a really good job writing this, and now we're going to make it great. We're elevating it. And I really believe that. I mean, a good teacher and a good editor, that is what they're trying to do with their students and with their authors. They're not trying to demoralize us. They're trying to help us be even better. And yeah, I remember another school visit I did where I made that point, and I could see the 6th grade teacher leaning around. We were in the auditorium, and she was looking at her students and like pointing at me and nodding like, that's it, yes. So I really think kids are gonna relate to that more than anything else almost that you talk about. So really make sure you focus on the editing process. Also, it is a revelation for a lot of kids that professional authors who have written lots and lots of books don't pound out a flawless first draft and send it off to their publishers and, you know, get all the awards and the bestseller lists and stuff. Like, that's not how it works. We go through revision after revision after revision. That's really eye-opening for a lot of kids. So definitely make sure you focus on that. And then after that, we get into the fun stuff, which is Once the book is done, it's revised, it's copy edited, and then you get to start to see the process of it turning into a real book. And depending on how much time I have in the presentation, I try to keep it always under 45 minutes. For younger kids, like 20 to 30 minutes is better. So I don't necessarily have time to go into all of this, but I will show them the first pass pages so they can see how it goes from a Word document into a layout. Definitely show them illustrations always. If you went through a cover journey, which I have with many of my books, show them all the different stages of the book cover. Kids love to see that stuff. It's so fascinating to them. It's fascinating to me, honestly. I love seeing, you know, a cover journey for a book. I think it's awesome. So I go through that, and then, so one final thing, and I think a lot of authors skip this when they talk about the publication process. Talk about what happens after your book comes out, specifically reviews. Oh my gosh. Rebecca and I came up with this because our theme was worst case scenarios, and we wanted to talk about what it's like to get bad reviews. You really want to drive home to the kids that no book is universally beloved, and it is impossible to write something that everybody is just going to think is the most amazing book on the planet. So what I did specifically, and it was so funny, it got the same explosive reaction at every single school we visited, is I think we chose 3 books that we were pretty sure the majority of kids would have read, or at least have heard of. Percy Jackson, I think Wonder, and Matilda. And I went on Goodreads and I found the meanest, you know, not inappropriate, but otherwise meanest 1-star reviews of each of those books I could find. And what I did was I would put the review up first. One I remember, like one line from one review that I remember is, if I were to add this book to the top of any list, it would be on a list entitled Weird, Random, and Stupid. And that was in a review for the first Percy Jackson book. So I show the review first, and then I put up the cover of Percy Jackson, and the kids scream. They are outraged, and it's so funny. And I do that for every single book. And you know, it's just to prove the point, like, no book is universally beloved, and I really think it's important to drive that home. And Rebecca and I would talk about some reviews that we got that were maybe less than favorable, and if there's something we can learn from that, or if the lesson is just, well, this book wasn't that reader's cup of tea. And then of course we show good reviews, and we talk about how meaningful it is when a reader clearly connected with something in the book that was really important to us, and kind of brings the whole thing full circle and makes us really happy that our story reached someone, and that makes it all worth it. So definitely something to consider working into your presentation if you can, because kids love the drama of it, and I do think it's actually a really important part of the experience. Anybody who's going to create art needs to learn how to deal with criticism. So with that being said, I am going to get to work updating my presentation for tomorrow, kind of going through it. It's been a while, I'm a little rusty, do a little practice run, and plan out my workshop for tomorrow, and make sure I have all my materials together. I will say this, one other thing that we talked about actually on Lisa's live stream this morning, and I will link to that down below because it was a good conversation, is the anxiety that comes with doing events like this, school visits, anything like that. And we had a really good talk about it. I know I used to have a ton of anxiety around getting up in front of any kind of group of people. When I was a kid, it was rough. I did not, a teacher calling on me in class was my actual worst nightmare. I wanted to be invisible. And I don't have any kind of secret as to how I got over that. All I can say is I was in band. We did a lot of performing. I had to work through a lot of anxiety to do that. I was a music education major. That involved getting up in front of groups of my peers and conducting and teaching, and I had to get over a lot of anxiety for that. And then I became a band director at a public school. And yeah, my first year, I was anxious getting up in front of those kids every single day. And then I just got used to it and I got over it. It was just, for me, the more I did it, the less anxiety inducing it was. And now, as far as like actually speaking in front of people, I don't have any anxiety about it at all. I love events. My only anxiety with any kind of thing like a school visit like this is technology related. I'm just like, you know, what if, you know, what I have doesn't fit their projector? What if blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that happens, and all I can say is bring as many options as you can. Like tomorrow for this school visit, I'm going to be bringing my laptop. I have my presentation on Keynote, which runs on my Mac, but I also have it on PowerPoint, and I exported it into PowerPoint, and then I ran through it on PowerPoint to make sure nothing looked wonky. I will also download it as a PDF, just as like a last, you know, ditch. If all else fails, I can pull up that as slides. And then I will put it on a hard drive, which I will take with me, but I also have an HDMI cable and that adapter that will connect to most schools' projectors, and I'm gonna try to run it off my laptop first. Of course, you should talk to your school that you're going to, because they're all gonna have slightly, I mean, you might be in a cafeteria, you might be in a classroom, you might be in the library, you could be anywhere. You might be in a gym. I've done that before as well. So just ask them what technology they have and tell them what you have, and see what, you know, what options you can work out, and then put that stuff in the contract as well. The school will provide this, I will provide this, that kind of thing, just to make sure everything is all squared away. And if all else fails, do be prepared to give your presentation with no visuals. I know that sucks and it's scary, and I think it's only ever happened to me once. And so that's why I print out all my notes, you know, like, and I will just have it on paper, so that, I mean, if it comes to it and it's just me with my paper to, you know, here's me with my microphone checking my notes and talking. I mean, it's not as good without the visuals, but at least I can do something. So anyway, just give yourself as many options as possible with technology to reduce that anxiety, and, you know, just make sure that you have a good, smooth experience. So anyway, I'm gonna get to work, and then I will bring you guys with me on this visit tomorrow morning. Getting ready to go, and I've decided to bring a box of these author copies just to give to the kids or the school as a gift, because I mean, y'all, these boxes, you see that one back there and that one hiding over there, there's some under my bed. I've got too many author copies. I'd rather give them to the kids. Guys, it's like, you know, 8, almost 9 o'clock, but it's so dark. Why does it feel like 5 in the morning? Ugh. If you're in Dallas, the answer to the question, is there traffic, is always yes. This is why we leave very early. I am here 20 minutes early, and honestly, I had planned on getting here 30 minutes early, so always leave early, guys. Anyway, I'm kind of ducking down and hiding because there's a window and I can't tell if anybody can see me through it or not, and I don't want to look like a weirdo talking to myself. But I'm going to do my best to take as much footage as I can inside. I want to like bring you guys inside and show you. Obviously, I'm almost positive I can't show kids on camera. I'll do my best to bring you along for as much of it as I can, and then we'll do a rundown of how it went afterwards. That's awesome. All right, quick rundown. I have to get out of here and get home because I'm taking Rosa to the vet today. She's having some skin allergy thing going on. And, but it was great. Awesome kids. There was only 11 of them, I think. A small group. The presentation was super fun. They asked really great questions. And the writing activity was good. But one of the big challenges, and oh my gosh, all my respect to Montessori teachers, but the age range in there was 6 to 13. 11 kids aged 6 to 13. And when you're talking about writing, obviously, we're looking at vastly different levels. And this was like kind of a collaborative activity. And it wasn't the most collaborative one I could have done. And I'm glad I chose the exercise I did. But it was just a little bit of a challenge for me to not let the older kids feel bored, but not let the little kids feel like they were not keeping up, if that makes sense. Ultimately, everybody ended up writing a very cute story, and I think they got something out of it, but that's a challenge, man. I am used to dealing with one room of like everybody's about the same age, and I can, adjust my activity accordingly. Anyway, I got more to say about it, but I'm gonna get home and get Rosa taken care of, and we'll talk about it more later. All right, I am back home and I have like 20 minutes before I have to run back out and drive Rosa to the vet, which coincidentally our vet is like 5 minutes from the school I was at, and this is a good half hour away in no traffic from the apartment, so lots of driving today. I'm not used to that. Anyway, so I'm gonna cover the last few questions you guys asked real quick, and anything else that I can think of to say, any advice I can give about school visits, I'm gonna try to offer here, but I'm sure I'm gonna miss a lot of stuff, so don't forget to ask more questions in the comments if you need any help with school visits. I'm here to talk about it with you. So the next question I got was, are school visits an important part of being an author? Not just financially, but also keeping in the loop with what kids are reading, building your brand, God, I hate that word, and your platform, and do school visits help with book sales? So I feel like this is gonna be kind of the theme of all of my questions or the answers that I've been giving you guys is yes and no to everything. School visits are so unique that there's no like one answer that kind of is like a good blanket statement answer for all school visits. So I'm going to start with, are school visits an important part of being an author? If you want them to be. I think it is one of the best ways if you are a middle grade author, and I'm going to go ahead and say if you are like any kind of children's author, if you write picture books, same goes. It is it can be an incredibly important part of a marketing plan for you. And the reason I say that is because it's one of the very few things in marketing that we as authors can control. We do not get any, I'm speaking to traditionally published authors. We don't get any say in how widely our books are distributed. We don't get any say in really what events we may or may not end up getting to go to and speak at. But we can schedule our own school visits. And I think that, I don't know, that just makes me feel empowered as an author, and that's why I like to do them. That said, I know middle grade authors who they just, for a variety of reasons, like public speaking anxiety, they do not want to do school visits ever, and they don't, and they are still middle grade authors, and they continue to sell books. That's the path they chose. So no, you do not have to do it. You don't have to do anything with marketing or publicity that you don't want to do. I firmly believe that. But if you want to do school visits and you are, you write books for kids, school visits can be incredible. Financially speaking, and I'm going to talk about book sales specifically again in a minute, but I'm talking about like the honorariums, making money from your school visits. Yeah, that can be huge. The vast majority of authors, including middle grade authors, all authors, as you know, we are not earning a full-time living off of our books. That is a very, very rare thing. And I can't say that I've done this myself. I've made a nice supplemental income for myself doing school visits and things like that in the past. But I know authors who were solidly mid-list, middle grade authors. They were, their author income was supplementary. It was not their main income. And they would do things, when they would release a book a year, and the couple of months surrounding when their book came out, they would do literally 3 to 5 school visits every week. I'm talking, taking a couple months away from writing completely and essentially becoming a full-time school visitor. But you know what? I have no idea what the average is, but like, let's just say you charge $500 for a full day school visit. And I think that would be a little bit on the low end, depending on the area you live in. You can do the math on that. $500 a day, 3 to 5 days a week for a couple months. You can do a really good job raking it in on your school visits, just again from the honorarium. So now let's talk about book sales. Are book sales, you know, a big part of it? Can you sell a lot of books? You can, but every school is different. The school I just went to was a very small Montessori academy. They did have not only Spell and Spindle, but also I think all, or at least 2 of my Scholastic books, they had classroom sets of those. And so the kids had read all of the books and we were able to talk about the specifics of the stories, which was great. And I did bring a box of books to donate, but that was, again, because it was such a small group and I have so many author copies that I knew I could, you know, cover every kid. Other times, like I told you guys about the book tour that Rebecca and I did, or the school visit tour Rebecca and I did, the school took care of it. And yeah, I mean, I would say we saw hundreds of students every day in that district, and over 90% of them had bought our books. So that's a huge boost in sales for you right there from a one-day school visit. School visits can be excellent for book sales, but again, it's not a guarantee. It just depends. It depends on the event. It depends on the school. It depends on how many kids are there. So many factors that go into it. Oh, and as far as keeping up with what kids are reading, yes, that's actually something I haven't really thought about, but now that I reflect on it, it is, and writing workshops this was always great for me, is it was just a way for me to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what kids are excited about with books, with telling stories, with fan fiction, because so many of them just will love to write, you know, stories based on their favorite characters from other books, shows, video games, all that. It is a great way to just kind of like, yeah, keep in the know about what kids are excited about at the moment. Next question. Are kids inspired by you as an author? Like, do you think in the future someone will say, I got published because Michelle Schusterman came to my school? That would be amazing. I would love that. Something we did talk about today during the visit, I told them when I was a kid, their author visits wasn't a thing. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but to me, I was not even aware that being an author was a thing you could just choose to do as a career path, like be a policeman, be a teacher, be a doctor, be an author. It was like, I don't know what my logic was, but little me thought that like authors were kind of like chosen. You know, you couldn't just write a book and and try to get published yourself. You couldn't just choose to do that. And I don't even know when it was I figured it out, but I was like I think I was out of high school into college even after college, before it occurred to me, like, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can write a book myself. So yeah, I really hope that by doing these school visits, that some kids are, you know, it clicks for them and they start at a young age and they think, oh, I can do this. Okay. And they go for it. I would love to be the inspiration behind, you know, some kid that's going to grow up and be like the next big thing. That would be amazing. And the last question I got was, how important do you think school visits are in building tomorrow's readers and especially writers? Oh, I think I already answered that a lot with my previous statements, but I think this is huge. I think, oh gosh, I could make a whole other, I don't want to say video, I could make a whole other YouTube channel about school, the public school system specifically, what kids learn in school and what they don't learn in school, and what we are and are not allowed to teach them, and the ways we are kind of forced to teach kids, and how it really only works for certain types of learners. I have a lot of opinions on this. This is a totally separate rant. I do think that everybody, all kids, all of us as humans, we all just learn in different ways. And many of us, the ways we learn, we aren't at our best when we are sitting in a desk all day, reading and having information flung at us. Some people do great that way, and that's awesome. It's just not for everyone. And I think that the more kids can get exposed at a young age to, you know, here's what it, like any kind of career day, here's what it's like to do this job, to do this job, to do this job. I mean, honestly, I don't want to say I would promote internships for like elementary school students, but I kind of low-key would. If we could just, you know, the whole bring your daughter, bring your son to work day, do we do that anymore? Do people do that? Because I think getting out of the classroom and at a young age and or having someone come into your classroom and seeing how all this stuff that you're getting from your textbooks and from the chalkboard or the whiteboard or whatever, how can it actually apply to doing things you're passionate about for a career in your life? I think there's a ton of value to that. And as for specifically readers and writers, I think I've talked about, I can't remember if I talked about this in this video already, but I know I've talked about it in other videos. A big thing for me and a reason I love doing workshops specifically. The presentations are great. I will happily do, you know, questions and answers and stuff with the kids about the publishing process, but I want to get them writing while I'm there with them, because I think a lot of kids are going to tell you they don't like reading, and a lot of kids are going to tell you they do not like writing. But the truth is, all kids, and I will say all humans, we love stories. We are inherently drawn to stories. If you look at, just take a quick look at whatever social media platform you want to look at and what's the most successful on that platform, it's going to be people who know how to tell a good story. At the end of the day, we love it. And I think we're all natural storytellers. And I think kids get their essays back all marked up and read, and they tell themselves as early as first grade, I am not a good writer. And then they just, that's it. That's like part of their identity. And I want kids to know that you can all find a way to enjoy reading, and you can, and oh gosh, another separate tangent, you know, story time, reading aloud is great. I think kids should have more audiobooks in classrooms so that they have that option. I think every kid is a reader at heart, and I think every kid is a great writer at heart. And I think we all, maybe it might look different for all of us. And that's why I like to get them all at the table, and we do activities, and I keep in mind, not every kid is going to want to sit here and quietly write a story, and that's why that's not what my writing games ever are. They're more interactive, they're more collaborative, and I want them to walk away from that thinking, oh, that was not only easy, it was fun, I can tell a story. I think anyone can tell a story. And that's just that's the general message I want all my kids to take away from my school visits when I go out there. So anyway, okay, really got to run to the vet. I think it's going to rain, so this will be a fun drive. But thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'm sure you've got more questions. I am here to answer them. I could talk about school visits all day, as it turns out. So let me know in the comments below, and I will see you soon in the next one. Bye.